What comes to mind when you think of the Great Depression? Maybe you think economic downturn, the Dust Bowl, stockbrokers jumping off of buildings, but certainly not new economic ideas. Haha, you're such a normie. I forgot about him. Well, ignore I just embarrassed myself and let's move on. The Great Depression was one of the worst economic crises in the world. While today we might think of this as a horrible time where everyone was unemployed, struggling to survive, and just a general sense of sadness, which it was, not saying it isn't, what we don't think about the Depression is it actually caused a reset in economics. Before the Great Depression, economic liberalism ruled the world of economics. While there were other economic ideals such as social democracy, socialism, and protectionist and progressive versions of liberalism, economic liberalism still dominated economics until the Depression hit. With the economic collapse and the failure of Herbert Hoover, many people lost faith in economic liberalism, and many new economic ideas formed out of the Depression. Of course, we all know the idea that came out on top. This isn't about that idea though. I want to go over the economic ideas that did not come to prominence, that many saw as an alternative during the Depression. Also, I'd like to note that I will not be covering ideas that existed before the Depression, but came to prominence during the Depression, like socialism, fascism, and others, but rather ideas that developed alongside the Depression or because of the Depression. So, let us begin. Technocracy is the idea where leaders are elected or appointed based on their expertise in a given area of government. Usually these are scientists, engineers, or others who are knowledgeable in the area that they are appointed in. To simplify it, intellectuals and scientists rule the government. The idea of technocracy has been around for a long time, but the modern idea of it was introduced in 1919 by the engineer William Henry Smith, writing an article in the Industrial Management Journal outlining the ideology. However, the ideology was still extremely vague and had no real political power or supporters. This changed when the Depression hit and technocracy became extremely popular underneath Howard Scott, who was the head of the Technical Alliance in the early 1930s. Underneath Scott, technocracy gained a resurgence in which the ideology was more refined, and the governmental model known as the Technate was set up, in which it laid out how a technocratic government would work. By defining the ideology more and laying out the system of governments, the technocrats were able to get into my video instead of just being another ideology that gained prominence during the Great Depression. Oh, and unimportantly, it also brought a lot of people into the ideological government. However, this early prominence ended once FDR was elected and proposed the New Deal, and with that, public interest in the movement rapidly declined, instead moving towards FDR's New Deal. With this loss in public interest, technocrats were reduced to fringe movements, Fauci worship, my scrapped Horde 4 mod, and Italy apparently. Ironic. The thing technocrats hated the most was the thing that gave them prominence. And then just like that, they stripped that prominence away.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi. Well, that ends my Palpatine ASMR. If you want to see a full video of the Dark Plagueis the Wise story but with technocrats instead, give me the 10,000 likes. Okay, I'm very aware of the memes associated with this ideology. So before I cover it, let's get all the memes out of my viewer systems.
And I will fight for an America where you are a citizen under the Constitution, not a serf to Wall Street. We march north as traitors, but we will come home as kings.
Huey Long, also known as Huey Long Dong, is best known as a meme from a popular Hearts of Iron 4 mod. In said mod, he leads a rebellious faction of populists in a second American Civil War. Haha, where have we seen that before? And his ideas are usually memeified and ironically quoted as based and red-pilled. In this vast wasteland of memes and irony, there are legitimate supporters of Long, but they are usually drowned out by the memes and ironic supporters spitting out sayings from Kaiserreich. There was a time, however, where Huey Long's ideas were not only respected, but prominent. If you're living in a hole and don't know who Huey Long is, he was the governor of Louisiana from 1929 to 1932, and a Louisiana senator from 1932 until his assassination in 1935. In his early years, Long lived in the impoverished rural Louisiana. He would later serve as a lawyer and argue in front of the Supreme Court, as well as argue for poor plaintiffs, which greatly influenced his ideology later on. In 1928, he would be elected as the governor of Louisiana, and he massively expanded Louisiana's welfare system and organized building projects to improve infrastructure. While this sounds normal for a governor, and especially for the state Louisiana was in at the time, he achieves this through unconstitutional and dictatorial means, along with political intimidation. During the Depression, he sided with FDR and supported him in the 1932 election, but split in 1933 because of his opposition to the New Deal. Instead, Long proposed the Share Our Wealth program. Now, while this might sound extremely socialist to the average Joe, he actually believed in capitalism, but just opted to heavily regulate the said markets to, quote-unquote, crush Wall Street and the rich hierarchies. Man, my Kaiserreich voice is doing good. He also supported wealth redistribution, which should be pretty obvious considering the program's name literally is called Share Our Wealth. Long planned to run in the 1936 election, but was assassinated in 1935 by this man. However, his legacy still lasts, with longest factions existing in Louisiana until the 1960s, as well as Long's ideology turning into one of the longest lasting things of all time, an internet meme. The Great Depression was one of the most devastating economic recessions in modern history. With that recession was a reset in economics. For the good or the bad, that is up to you, but in my opinion, it was bad. Very, very bad. But I won't get into that because you'll see me screeching about it in the comment section. So go look there if you want to see my opinion on it. But regardless of your opinion on this reset, it formulated many of the ideologies we have today, with it formulating modern American liberalism and pushing classical liberalism to conservative and libertarian ideologies. With this reset, many new economic ideas emerged, including the ones I just mentioned. But the one that beat them all was Keynesianism. I didn't want to cover Keynesianism because everyone knows it. Instead, I wanted to highlight some ideologies that were a little bit unknown. Perhaps in the future, I might cover Keynesianism in its entirety. But as of right now, I just wanted to do this. And that's it. This video is extremely short to work on, and it was pretty easy for me to make. I wanted to give y'all a filler video as well as step up my content a little bit more. I'm always working to make this content better. Also, I want to say Sinis Romanum lore is in progress. I have a couple creators joining the video, so expect some big guys to join. And with that out of the way, like and subscribe.
Because I don't want to scream at y'all again with a gun.